Well, hello, my friends. It is me, Bobby B, and you are listening to the Tilt and Shift Photography Business Podcast. If you didn't know, if this just suddenly switched to the next podcast on your list, it's me. Thank you for being here. I thought I would chat with you about a recent experience I had at Chico Review. For those of you who don't know, is a photo book retreat is what that is called. If you don't know what that is, it is a place where there were 80 photographers who had submitted a personal project, and you got 20 minutes to talk to 10 different reviewers over the course of 5 days. And those reviewers gave you their impressions and ideas and encouragements or doubts about your project and its impact or where you could go with it or the direction. It's for people who have a project idea, who want to do something with it, and you have this opportunity to speak to publishers and photographers who work in the photo book medium, people who've been doing this for decades. The whole point of doing this is to get some feedback on what it is that you are creating. And I know for a lot of you, working on a personal project might not be something that is on your to-do list. And that is what I wanted to talk to you about today, because my journey to get to Chico has been quite a few revelations and some shifts in my perspective and in my overall photography career. So I, as a mentor, as a coach, as a photographer, I am someone who really encourages my students to work on personal projects. And the reason for this is two. One, it gets you outside of the confining box that is wedding or family photography. There's this saying that's called the niches are in the riches. Oh, the riches are in the niches, which is a terrible butchering of the French word niche. It's niche. So the riches or the niches doesn't quite have the same ring, but I don't know if that's true. Sure, like you have to have a really good product and you have to have something that's marketable and clear, but to stick only to that niche is career, I don't want to say suicide, but it's certainly confining you in many ways that you're probably not aware of. And one of those is artistic freedom. And the thing that I hear from all of my students is that they don't know what their voice is specifically. Like they have an idea, but they are a little bit afraid to show it or to believe that it's valid. And they don't necessarily know how to bring that out in their sessions because they are doing something for someone else. And that is limiting in so many ways. Marketing, I mean, where do I even begin with this? Your business becomes better when you figure out who you are and you do not step to the confines of your industry. So you are no longer defined by your niche. I actually just did an Instagram post about this, and I said that wedding photos are family photos because for me, families are fascinating. Families are the foundation of our civilization, and we don't give that enough gravity. So when we just look at wedding photography as event photography, we're missing the whole point. In my opinion, there are certainly lots of photographers who shoot it like as an event, and it is an event. Yes, I know. These are not black and white terms that I'm trying to use here. What I am trying to say is that when we only confine ourselves to one niche, we open ourselves up to all the limitations of the expectations of that niche. And wedding photography typically is not looked at as family photography. And for me, family photography is what is the most interesting. And I am the most motivated by families and relationships and expressions and gestures and how we express ourselves in the forms of family. So that's what fuels my wedding photography. And so when I look at photography, I'm not looking at family photography either. So here's the other piece that happens with lots of people who are in a niche is they only look at photographs that are in their niche. But when you do that, you're only seeing repetitions of the same idea. And that's why your work looks like everybody else's. If you are only ruminating in the same echo chamber, we are all repeating the same ideas, the same compositions, we're all looking for the same thing. And that is where your voice gets limited, is because you are looking at other people's work, and consciously or subconsciously, you end up looking for those photos that you've already seen when you are at a wedding or you are in a family session. So my first encouragement is to stop, absolutely stop looking at other wedding photographers, other family photographers. Stop looking at it, because you are being filtered through their impression of what that is. And their impression is likely filtered through every other family or wedding photographer that they ever look at. So if you want to open up your horizons and really understand how you see as a photographer, and you really want to stand out in your business, stop looking at other businesses for many reasons. Also because like that comparison game, imposter syndrome, all of that shit just starts like bubbling up, and it is this magma of lost identity for you as a photographer. So that's the first thing. Stop looking at other people's work that are in your genre. The next step is to start looking at art and at photography because you're interested in it. If you're someone who like never looks at other photographers, and this was me probably like 7 years ago. Like I started in photography because I was interested in documentary photography. I'm one of those Nat Geo people that was like, oh my God, this blew my mind. And so then that is why I was interested in documentary photography. And then I got into wedding photography, and I started shooting it the way wedding photographers, quote unquote, should be doing it, which is confining and boring. And then I started looking at photography outside of wedding and family photography and really finding what I was interested in. So stop looking at other, if you're feeling lost or confined and you don't know what your voice is or like how to show up in your marketing, just stop looking at everybody else's. Just stop it. Stop. Remove, mute, turn off notifications of all of those people in your feed, and start looking for work that fills you up. Like, what are you interested in? That is what most of my students are not really able to say. They're like, well, I love my clients. Like, yeah, but then you're doing something for your client. You're not doing it for you. And the reason that we want to kind of move away from that, if you want to build a successful business and a sustainable, meaningful practice, is you have to do it for you. You really do have to be, quote unquote, selfish in your artistic pursuit. And by being selfish, by really honing in on what you are interested in and how you want to create, that is a service and a gift that you're giving your clients. If you are clear about that, they will see that and they will hire you for that. And then it all becomes really quite easy, my friends. I promise. And I know it's terrifying because you're like, well, this person has 15,000 followers and this is how they're doing it. So you are not that person, right? You're not that person. So just like walk away from that illusion. Okay, so how do we find what we're interested in? Honoring what you are interested in. Like, part of being an artist and creating standout work that people will hire you for because they're like, wow, I love the way they photograph this stuff. And I want to hire them to photograph my wedding or my family because they photograph families and weddings like this, not like everybody else that I see. And people identify with you based on your unique vision if you do a good job of marketing that, right? If you can stand away from other wedding and family photographers, people will pick that up. We innately are drawn to things that speak to us, right? And so honoring what you're interested in, what I mean by that is lots of my students will never pick up a camera outside of their sessions. And if that's you, friend, you need to pick up your camera outside of your session. The reason for this is because when we only it's twofold. When we only look at other wedding photographer or family photographers for their work, that's the only vision that we have in our head. And so then if we only pick up our camera on the day of the session, the only visions we have in our head is what we've already seen. Okay? So if you start shooting things because you are interested in them outside of your job, then that interest starts to permeate what you see at weddings and in family sessions. I hope that makes sense. The reason you need to start picking up your camera outside of your sessions, your paid sessions, is because you need to build the interest muscle. You need to practice using and acknowledging your interest, because that is what will start to shine through when you are working with your clients. Now, how do we do that? For me, I found the practice got much easier when I just started using crappy film cameras. I bought like a lot of like 10 plastic cameras off of eBay, and I just started shooting rolls of expired film. The reason for this is because digital is what I shoot. Well, I started shooting film at weddings when I started doing this, but at the time I was using digital for my client work. And so it was a different process. It was a different brain. You know, I had no other work to do. The beautiful thing about film is you just make a photo and that's it. Like you can edit it in Lightroom if you want to. You can do some tweaks or whatever, but what you've composed, that's it. That's it. And it's kind of like, it has a bit of a financial burden to it as well. Like, I don't know, I think it's like $3 or $4 per photo, depending on where you buy it and where you get it developed, or if you do it yourself or whatever. So there's a bit of a financial commitment to doing it. So you actually have to recognize when you're interested in something. That's the first step. Like for me, I didn't realize I was so interested in trees. My canon of tree photos is deep. I love trees. And so I shoot them all the time. And does this play into my wedding photography and family photography? Not because there's trees there, but because I know what my interest muscle feels like. And I hope that makes sense. When you practice photographing things because you are interested in them, you build muscle memory in your body so that you have this beautiful communication between your subconscious interest in something and picking up your camera to make a photo of it. And how that plays into your client work is that if you are honoring the fact that this is something that brings you joy or feels sublime, or it tickles your creative muscle, juice, whatever, it tickles that, it satisfies that, it calls to you to make that photo, then you are going to be much more in line with that when you are photographing people. And it starts to override all the rules and all the expectations that have been built into your brain by this industry. So the other thing about having a personal project is, one, building that interest muscle, but two, it really helps you to play. And when we play, we are in a creative space. We take off the pressure and we are able to create for the joy of creating. And the work that you create in that space is so much more, it is completely aligned with who you are as an artist, and that benefits your business. So I'm tying these things back to your business because that's what we're here for, right? We have chosen to have a profession, a creative profession that requires us to sell our art. But we become better artists when we acknowledge and practice what we are interested in before we start thinking about the business. I hope that makes sense. You're an artist first, and then you're a business person. And if you're a business person first, this probably isn't the podcast that you want to listen to. I mean, you can, by all means. But you can, if you're interested, you might be here because you're curious about making that shift from putting your art first, and then the business will follow. That's what I teach all of my students. Put your art first and the business will follow. But the place that it comes from is rejuvenated and exercised, and it grows stronger when you have personal projects. when you work on personal projects. So something for me, I have 4. And the other thing is that it really helps you to like get rid of like deadlines and stuff, because one of my projects I've been working on for like 7 years, and listening to all of the speakers who were at Chico, they've been doing a project for like 20 years, 30 years. They worked on that one for 10 years. They worked on that one for 5 years. And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Like this is like the long game. This isn't like we're used to like delivering sneak peeks in 24 hours. This isn't that. This is not like candy scrolling quick satisfaction stuff. This is like you are honing a skill, you are honing your interest muscle. You are honoring that. You are creating a relationship with your creativity through a personal project. So something that you are inherently interested in. What are you interested in? For lots of people, it ends up being their family, right? Your family means so much to you, right? It is an easy thing to start photographing your family in a way that builds up your interest muscle. For other people who don't necessarily have kids in the house, maybe there's other things like me, trees. So I've started photographing trees because I fucking love them. I love them. And it creates a sense of like peace and tranquility and like a groundedness that I'm now able to bring into my business. Ooh. I didn't know that through line would happen. It does, and it has. It has, and it like continues to like fuel my willingness to show up creatively. And I've gotten much more bold and much more clear about how I show up in my client work, because I am so much more clear on what I'm interested in from my personal projects. So the project that I presented at Chico Review is okay. So here's the problem. As a documentary photographer, we are very interested in like the narrative. Like it starts here and it ends here. This is the through line. This is the story. Here's the climax. Here's blah 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 blah. And so the other thing about having a personal project is that oftentimes that narrative, it either doesn't matter, or it's secondary to the photos, which kind of blew my mind a little bit, because I went in there with an elevator pitch and I had like, here's the sequence and blah, blah, blah. No, my friends, it's not, because other people are going to see things that you don't. They see your blind spot. They see the things that you're trying to like, that you don't think are, really obvious. I have this one photo that was kind of very different from the rest of them, and my first reviewer picked that one up and she's like, tell me more about this one. And so it kind of like rejigged the entire direction of the rest of the reviewers, because I was like, oh yeah, she's totally right. Like I thought that was like an accessory photo, and like no, this is like the crux photo. So having other people look at your work is such an important exercise. And so Chico Review really does that very intensely, and it's a personal project. So there's usually a little bit more like, even more so than my client work, there's like this bit of a, like I'm showing people my kind of intimate thoughts, right? But that's what we love about personal work, because you're processing through those things that are meaningful to you. And so the project that I presented was called Home Not Home, and it is an intimate study of my journey with dissociative disorder and how I found reattachment through being in nature. So at the time, while I was working through this, photography has always been like a way for me to like deal with my emotions or like metabolize them. And at the time when I was experiencing specific emotions, I would make a photograph, like no matter where I was, whatever I was doing, whenever I felt that, I would make a photo. So something that happens with this dissociative disorder is that you don't feel anything, like you're completely appropriately dissociated from what you're experiencing. And so photography for me is a way to like ground myself and bring myself back into my body and into reality. And so I would make a photograph of that. And here's the other thing, is like when you have a personal project, don't do it with like an intention of like, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then this is going to happen, and then that's going to happen, and this will be it. No, the reason people work on personal projects for 10 to 15 years is because they're just interested in it. That's it. You're just making photographs of things that you're interested in. For some people, there could be a narrative, or a narrative evolves, or it starts with a narrative. But without an agenda, you get to be free. You get to shoot whatever you want that's related to that topic. And that's where the most interesting projects come out, is because you get to see the way people see. You know, you're not like confined to like this happened and then this happened and then this happened and then we went home. You're like, this happened and then I didn't know this was going to happen, but then that happened. And then like, it's this circuitous, like undulating, winding experience, journey that you don't know where it's going. You're just shooting things that you're interested in. How cool is that? So when I looked back over the last 3 years of doing this, it was a project. Like it was a journey. It was something that I could put together, and maybe I'll make a book of it, or maybe I'll just keep shooting it, or maybe it's done. Like maybe that process has served its purpose. I don't think that's true for me, but for some people it is. You know, you work on something for 3 or 4 years. The other project I have is teen girls. I've been shooting them since like 2018, and that's nowhere near done. Like I'm shooting it because I'm interested in it, and maybe it will become something, maybe it won't. But the point is, I'm honoring what I'm interested in, and I'm making work that speaks to that. And by showing it to other people, they are helping me strengthen my vision and be more emboldened to share what it is that I'm interested in, what I bring to the table creatively. And that plays in to everything I do in my business. So I want you to walk away from this monologue with the permission to pick up a camera that isn't going to create any more work for you. Or like, let's say you have like an old digital or something that isn't going to associate your brain with work. So whether that's a plastic camera, whether like you grab your grandpa's camera, or like you have a camera that is not related to your work, and just carry it with you. Carry it with you wherever you go. And make a photo whenever you feel interested. And don't be embarrassed about it. Don't be like, oh, it's not good enough. Like, oh, yeah, you know, like that would be a good photo, but like, I don't want to do this. Or like the voices I had in my head, all the reasons I had not to make the photo, there was a litany. There was a whole bunch of them, but eventually that kind of went away. I'm interested in that, and therefore I'm going to make a photo of it. Composition, light, all that stuff is kind of secondary. The point I want you to practice is acknowledging that you are interested in something and you are allowed to make a photo of it. Make a photo of it, and then the other things will come. The other things will come, like maybe you do want a different lens because it's not quite looking the way that you thought it would. And that is okay. That's part of the process. You're not a bad photographer. You're not any of those things. It's not a good photo. It's not a bad photo. It's just a photo of something you're interested in, and you can learn so much about yourself. You're just getting to know yourself. You're just understanding and acknowledging and honoring what it is that you're interested in. So your homework this week, I haven't assigned homework for a long time, but your homework is to like just grab a journal, grab a piece of paper, grab your notes, do a voice memo. Think about things that you're interested in, and it might be a color. It might be an insect. It might be clothes. It might be water. It might be anything. Like anything is a topic for a personal project. There are no confines here. There's no good or bad. Pick up your camera and just like start shooting it. Start shooting it. That's one way, is to like pick a topic. Like for me, I picked teens, and so I started photographing teens. And whenever I have time, I'll reach out to some teens and be like, hey, can I hang out with you? But this other one that I presented at Chico was something that I felt. So then I always had a camera with me. So it was something that there may always be an opportunity for me to feel that thing. And so I'm going to have my camera with me so that if I feel that thing. So there's a myriad of ways that you can approach this. And I'm just giving you 2 options. Like pick a topic and you just kind of, you start photographing that intentionally. You're just like, I'm interested in teenagers, so I'm going to have to like reach out to some teenagers, which is uncomfortable, but it also teaches you all sorts of things about communication and self-worth and all of this stuff. But like, The other way is like, I'm just going to have a camera with me at all times, and I'm going to make a photo whenever I'm interested in something. Okay. And of course, you can just use your phone for this. But the practice that is often missed with our phone is that we don't download the images and we don't look at them. So that's the beautiful thing about film, is that you're going to get it developed and you're going to have the opportunity to see it. If you use your phone, which is the easiest camera almost all of us have, just make sure that you have, part of the practice is for you to like download those photos into like a folder called interest, or I don't know, some word that will remind you that these photos are just for my interest muscle. Put them in there and make sure you look at them, because that feedback of looking at what you're interested in piques your interest. It keeps the interest going. Okay? So that's your homework. Start building your interest muscle. Take photos when you're interested in something. Build a personal project without gravity, without like expectations that this has to be something. The thing that it is that you are becoming a more interesting and interested photographer. And that is going to make your business better. Okay? So stop looking at other wedding and family photographers. Just stop it. You don't have to do it. Start looking at photographs that you might be interested in or don't, like other photography outside your niche, outside your genre, and start honoring what you are interested in by making a photo when you feel interest. Okay? If this is interesting to you, if you are intrigued, if you feel like you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I gotta do something. I gotta do something with my career, with my artistry. I'm gonna take one more mentor this spring. Mentee. So reach out to me. You can DM me or you can email me. I'll send you the link to my calendar. Actually, I'll just put the link to my calendar in the show notes, and we can grab a spot and we can talk about working on a personal project as part of your mentorship and how that will play into building a more sustainable business. So all the information is in the show notes. I'll put a link to Chico Review so you can check that out if that's something that sounds interesting to you, and also the link to my calendar. And that's it for today, my friends. Start working on your interest muscle. Have a